Pastor Tim shot in the back several times in the parking lot of his own Coeur d'Alene church. Tonight, Pastor Tim is alive and recovering as his congregation and the Coeur d'Alene community come together to support him, as he has supported hundreds of people who needed his help in the past.
For anybody who needs help, he will give up his life to go after them and just show them the love of God.
At the same time, police search for the suspected shooter, a Marine with close ties to Coeur d'Alene. Tonight, KREM 2 News brings you unmatched coverage of the region's biggest story.
KREM 2 News at 5 starts now.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
And I'm Jane McCarthy. We are live in Coeur d'Alene tonight following up on the shooting of Pastor Tim Remington. The suspect is still on the loose tonight.
Remington was shot 4 times in the back as he walked to his car right here in this parking lot behind us yesterday afternoon. The suspect is Kyle Odom.
We want to tell you about Odom. He's 30 years old. He has blonde hair and blue eyes. He is 6 feet tall, about 170 pounds. Now, he may be driving a 2004 silver Honda Accord with Idaho plates K578519.
Odom was a Marine. He worked as a flight equipment technician back in 2009. He also earned several awards throughout his service. Police do want to remind people he should be considered armed and dangerous.
We want to turn now to KREM 2's Taylor Vito, who attended a news conference late this afternoon. Taylor has the very latest tonight.
Well, first of all, police say that it appears that the suspect planned out this attack. What his motive was or how he knew the victim, that's not exactly clear at this point, but we do know that the shooting was captured on security cameras.
However, it does appear that this was a pre-planned attack, and I will tell you that some details surrounding Mr. Odom's planning are disturbing.
As to what those details are, Coeur d'Alene police aren't releasing much as they continue to investigate this brazen shooting. Yesterday afternoon, investigators say 30-year-old Kyle Odom walked up to Pastor Tim Remington in the parking lot of his Coeur d'Alene church and shot him several times. Police wouldn't specify how many times Remington was shot, but they said it was captured on security camera.
The video footage that we have from this event was absolutely priceless. It was extremely helpful.
Cameras would later capture Odom fleeing into Washington state. Authorities believe he then headed south, but they're not clear where he's at right now. Tonight, we've also learned that Odom is a Marine and served overseas. He's a graduate of Lake City High in Coeur d'Alene. He also graduated from the University of Idaho with a science degree, where he was a near-perfect student. At this hour, it's not clear what his connection was to Remington or if the shooting had any ties to Remington's prayer at a Ted Cruz rally the day before. Coeur d'Alene police added that they believe he acted alone.
And after talking with people who knew Mr. Odom, it causes great concern for his immediate well-being and the well-being of those around him.
And police say they haven't been able to speak with Pastor Remington about the shooting just yet. They say that they don't believe anyone in the public is in danger at this point. However, they previously have said that Odom is considered to be armed and dangerous and is not to be approached. Reporting live outside the Coeur d'Alene Police Department, Taylor Vito, KREM 2 News.
Taylor, thank you very much. Now, Pastor Remington is known as a very generous and helpful man in this community.
He was born in California and moved to Coeur d'Alene back in 1968. He has housed more than 300 people dealing with a variety of issues like drugs and alcohol. He's been a senior pastor at the Altar Church for more than 18 years.
Our Lindsay Nadrich joins us live after learning more about Pastor Remington.
Pastor Tim Remington remains in the hospital tonight. Since the shooting, church staff told me they've been inundated with calls and people wanting to show their support and give their prayers. They told me people from all across the country have reached out. Staff say that's just an example of how many lives Pastor Tim has changed.
He's amazing. He's funny, he's fun, he's so excited about life and excited about Jesus. It's contagious. And he is a life changer.
John Padula, the outreach pastor at the Altar Church, says he's seen firsthand how Pastor Tim Remington has changed lives.
He's real. I mean, he will love you no matter what. He doesn't put stipulations on it. He's not a conditional friend. He's a friend at all times, and he loves and he's full of compassion.
It only takes a few minutes talking to members of Pastor Tim's church to understand just how much compassion he has.
Hi, my name is Tim Remington.
Pastor Tim started the Good Samaritan Rehabilitation Program and has changed more than 1,500 lives.
And that's Pastor Tim's passion, is for the lost and the addicts and the ones who pretty much the community has given up on. I was one of those men.
Pastor Padula is just one example of a life Pastor Tim changed.
So I was a meth addict for 17 years, hopeless. I had no hope, no future. I knew I was going to die a drug addict, and Pastor Tim and this ministry loved on me, and my life changed.
Church Secretary Adele Eckstein is another.
Well, 3 years ago, I tried to commit suicide, and Pastor came and picked me up.
Eckstein says Pastor Tim stepped in when no one else would.
It forever changed my life, that somebody who I didn't even know would take a chance on me. Somebody who didn't matter, somebody who had nothing.
That's what we as a church do here. We love what other people would say are throwaway people, unlovable people.
Church staff told me many of the people who go through and end up graduating from Pastor Remington's Good Samaritan Rehabilitation Program end up helping others and become part of the church family. Eckstein, for example, has started a home for women and children who have gone through the program and have no place to go. That's just one example of thousands of stories of what Pastor Tim has done for his community and how one life impacts so many others. If you do want to help, the church says they do need prayers for both Pastor Tim and the suspect Kyle Odom. They've also set up a GoFundMe page to help with expenses. Reporting live, I'm Lindsay Nadrich, KREM 2 News.
Lindsay, thank you. Now, we also spoke with a man who was inside his house yesterday when he heard those gunshots ring out.
That's right. KREM 2's Molly Trotter reports that man says he looked out his window and he saw the shooter standing over the pastor.
With such a vicious attack that happened at this church here in Coeur d'Alene, we took to the streets to see if anybody saw what happened, and we actually found an eyewitness who saw it all unfold right across the street. A Coeur d'Alene neighborhood was shaken up by the sounds of a local pastor being gunned down in his own church parking lot.
I heard 6 shots go off.
Tom Iverson was an eyewitness of what took place after multiple gunshots out his kitchen window. Show me exactly where you saw the shooter stand over Pastor Tim.
This is where the guy was standing, was right here.
Pastor Remington lying on the ground, and Iverson says it wasn't easy to watch. Did you see any life at all in Pastor Tim?
No. It was completely, there was no movement whatsoever from the person on the ground.
Did you think that Pastor Tim was dead at that point?
Yeah, I did. I didn't know it was Pastor Tim, but whoever was laying on the ground, if he hit him with all 6 shots, I figured the person, was dead.
We caught up with some of those who work closely with Pastor Remington at the church.
He really shouldn't be alive, honestly, as many times as they shot at him and as close as they were.
Who says their prayers have been answered, even throwing the doctors for a loop.
He's recovering, he went through surgery, and doctors say he's extremely lucky. We know it's not luck, it was totally God.
Church and family members saying they have already forgiven the shooter.
Nobody here is hateful towards him, mad at him. We actually, care for him. This is the type of people that we want to reach.
As for Pastor Remington, those close to him tell us he should make a full recovery and be back in the pulpit in no time.
He's one of the hardest working people alive, and this is about the only thing that'll keep him from coming to work.
With so many people expressing their condolences for Pastor Remington, they decided to hold a prayer vigil at Candlelight Christian Fellowship at 6 p.m. in Coeur d'Alene. Molly Trotter, KREM 2 News.
The Altar Church is known as being a church that embraces people with troubled past, and church members actually told us today they not only forgive the shooter, but they're actually praying for him as well.
For sure, we've heard a lot of that. KREM 2's Caitlin Lukitas has more on how church members say they're really following the lead of their pastor tonight.
Yeah, folks have been coming in and out of here all day long, really trying to come together during this time. And they say, even though this was such an egregious act, they say that the key to moving forward starts with forgiveness.
You can bank on the fact that this whole church is praying for him and his soul.
May Traversom says if Pastor Tim Remington could talk right now, he would have one message for the man suspected of shooting him 6 times, point blank.
I can guarantee right now that Pastor's already forgiven him.
Some say forgiveness is what will help them move forward toward not only helping to heal Remington's physical wounds, but the wounded spirits of this community.
It's a real eye-opener to actually see somebody do that and then it really tests your faith, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you could hate that guy, but what good is it gonna do you? Why would you let that guy ruin your day?
Others say part of healing as a community will involve coming together to reach out to shooter suspect Kyle Odom.
We know that he's just as much a lost soul as we were before we came to Christ. We are no better than he is. You know, we all started there at some point, and God had to save us.
In Coeur d'Alene, I'm Caitlin Lukitas, KREM 2 News.
Now, we also know Pastor Remington led the prayer at the Ted Cruz rally on Saturday, and a lot of people are wondering if that has any connection to this attack.
Yeah, indeed. Our Ryan Sims is looking into that for us tonight. He joins us live back at the studio with what he found. Ryan?
Yeah, Mark and Jane, other than dealing with the absolute shock of this shooting, the big question people want to know tonight is if Pastor Remington was targeted because of his association with Ted Cruz. As authorities continue to look into that possibility, Pastor Remington's family think that the two events are not related.
There's something else that kind of ties the victim and the suspect together. We don't have that in this case.
Authorities still do not have a motive in Pastor Remington's shooting, including if he was targeted for supporting Ted Cruz.
But at this point, I don't have anything through open source intelligence or anything else that would indicate a motive for this.
As police comb over every possible lead in this case, Pastor Remington's family does not think his support for Cruz led to the shooting. None of the family wanted to talk to us on camera, but in a phone call this afternoon, they told us they do not believe the shooting is about politics or religion. Instead, they told us they believe this is a tragic case of mental health and the terror that it can cause. As for how Pastor Remington was chosen to appear with Ted Cruz at this rally on Saturday, well, we're still trying to figure that out tonight. We called Cruz campaign workers in both Boise and Austin, Texas, but still have not heard back. Earlier today, though, the campaign did acknowledge the shooting, saying in a statement, "Our prayers are with Pastor Tim, his family, and the doctors who are supervising his care. We pray for his full recovery and are thankful for the efforts of law enforcement to ensure that the attacker is swiftly brought to justice." And tonight, we're also trying to find out if Ted Cruz and Pastor Remington had met before Saturday's rally. Now, as you might imagine, this shooting really has resonated with a ton of people on social media. For more on that tonight, Whitney Ward picks up our coverage here in the studio. Hey, Whitney.
Hi, Ryan. Yeah, of course, this issue has received a lot of attention on our social media platforms. One of the main questions that really stood out to us was why we were even mentioning that Pastor Remington is that same pastor who gave that opening prayer at the Ted Cruz rally. Now, Dave asked, what does him attending a rally have to do with anything? Lisa wondered maybe the suspect was also at the rally. There might be a connection. And John said it could have been in retaliation for attending that Cruz event or just to put a face on what happened. Nathan stated the pastor was recently very visible in the public eye at that rally. It's relevant for that reason. It remains to be seen whether the politics is also relevant. All good points, and frankly, all of those reasons are why we mentioned it ourselves. Police, though, of course, still determining a motive for the shooting as they hunt for that suspect, Kyle Odom. And as more information comes in from Pastor Remington's condition to the police investigation, we will be posting all of the latest on KREM.com and all of our other social media platforms as well. And we have information about Remington's background and how the entire situation unfolded yesterday. You can find all of that on our website. You can also stay up to date with the very latest, whether we're on the air or not. Just head on over to KREM.com or our KREM 2 mobile app. Now back to Mark and Jane.
At 6, some are calling it a medical miracle after being shot 4 times in the back. Pastor Remington could be released from the hospital in the next 2 days. We'll have the latest on his amazing survival story coming up new at 6.
We're working on a lot more on this story. Also still ahead, Tom Sherry will have your forecast. But we also want to remind you before we go that police are still looking for this suspected shooter. Again, his name is 30-year-old Kyle Odom. If you know where he is, you are urged to call 911. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back. Tom is here now. We're talking weather. Very blustery, very wet, kind of cold out there.
Yeah, well, you know, and sometimes the sun comes out and then you're like, oh, lovely. And then it
doesn't
changes.
last.
It doesn't last. That's very typical March weather. Now, take a look at this. Outside, we've got some areas of blue sky, other areas of cloud cover, and we're tracking a chance of a few showers this evening. A better chance of seeing a rain-snow mix in the overnight hours, about a 50% chance of that happening. So just letting you know, you could actually see a little wet snow early in the morning. And look what was falling up around Curlew Lake in the Kettle Falls area, or near Kettle Falls also. This is morning snowfall, so thank you, Maureen, for sending us this picture. Those northern valleys, when we're getting rain here, they're still getting snow up in those cold northern valleys, and that's very typical for March. By the way, our high today was 47, pretty darn close to what we normally see this time of year. Even the overnight lows not too far off. Normally drop down to 29. We had a low this morning of 33. We're going to track all week long some pretty chilly overnight lows. Calling for an overnight low of 31 degrees. We'll look for a high tomorrow of 47. Again, with partly cloudy skies and a better chance of showers by tomorrow night. We're in the mid-40s now, both in Spokane and Coeur d'Alene, but that breeze that's blowing out there makes it feel colder than the actual air temperature. And you look at the Doppler radar, we still have plenty of isolated showers around the region. And again, when you get into those northern valleys, instead of rain, we're seeing snow falling. Now, when I run the computer model, we call this thing Future Tracker. It predicts where rain or snow is going to fall and at what time. Let's run this thing overnight into tomorrow morning up to about this time tomorrow night. And as you can see, it was pretty dry except to the south of us and some of the northern valleys, but and not too many of them actually. And of course, the Cascades are seeing plenty of snow at the higher elevations and rain. And then by late tomorrow night, 10 o'clock, looks like snow begins to fall in the valleys, and we've got more weather, wet weather headed our way. Lots of unsettled weather during the month of March. Highs will be in the low 50s out in central Washington. We'll see a low of 28 in Deer Park, then a high of 46. Look for partly cloudy skies with isolated rain tomorrow. I think better chance farther south in the Palouse. We'll look for temperatures mostly in the 40s. Most areas will drop down below freezing tonight. So again, potential of a little wet snow in the overnight hours. 47 will be the high in Pullman, 54 in Lewiston. Grangeville will see a high of 45 degrees. Lots of unsettled weather in my 7-day forecast. We look for a better chance of evening rain on Tuesday. 40% chance of rain or a rain-snow mix at times on Wednesday. Better chance of just plain old rain on Thursday and a high of 53 degrees. Well, you get the idea when you look at those icons there. We've got on again, off again showers. Finally, though, as we get into next weekend, we're seeing those daytime highs once again warm up into the low 50s, and the overnight lows will stay above freezing. But for the next 24 to 48 hours, overnight lows are going to be cold enough to support a little wet snow early in the morning.
Won't last, though, very long.
No, it won't last,
All
right.
right, we'll be grateful for that, Tom. Thanks very much. All right, still to come after the break tonight, we said goodbye to First Lady Nancy Reagan yesterday. We'll have a look back at her remarkable life, plus the nation's funeral plans for her, coming up next.
I know how much she meant, not just to President Reagan, but to the country as a whole. He was lucky to have her, and I'm sure he'd be the first to acknowledge that. So she will be missed.
President Obama talking about Nancy Reagan this morning. He has ordered flags at the White House and all other public and government buildings to be flown at half-staff today. Washington Governor Jay Inslee has also ordered flags in our state to be lowered. Nancy Reagan was one of the most iconic first ladies of modern history. She passed away in her sleep yesterday at the age of 94. Mrs. Reagan was known as President Reagan's fiercest protector and most trusted political advisor. Her best-known project as First Lady was her campaign against drug abuse, though she was also very well known when she controversially advocated for stem cell research following the president's Alzheimer's diagnosis in 1994. Her funeral will be held this Friday at 11 in the morning. She will be buried next to her husband at the Reagan Library. Well, today, Denver Broncos quarterback Peyton Manning officially called it a career.
When someone thoroughly exhausts an experience, they can't help but revere it. I revere football. I love the game. So you don't have to wonder if I'll miss it. Absolutely, absolutely, I will.
A month after winning his second Super Bowl, Peyton Manning announced today he is retiring after 18 seasons in the NFL. Manning thanked his fans, his coaches, his teammates, and of course his family. He won 2 Super Bowls with 2 different teams and was league MVP a record 5 times. All right, still to come, a trip to the WCC Tournament Championship and a March Madness bid on the line. We're checking in with sports director Darnay Tripp in Vegas as the Zags prepare for their matchup with BYU tonight.
I am live in Las Vegas inside Orleans Arena, as always the home of the WCC tournament. We're about 35 minutes away from the first semifinal of the evening. St. Mary's taking on Pepperdine. They'll get going around 6 o'clock. Well, it is well known that Gonzaga fans swarm Vegas this time of year for the WCC tournament. I noticed it immediately when I got in last night to the hotel. GU t-shirts, sweatshirts, everywhere you look, and it only cranked up today after Sunday's day off. Now the games have resumed. Gonzaga and BYU, of course, have the biggest presence, so many people expecting a great atmosphere tonight. For many Gonzaga fans, this is an annual trip. You get a chance to enjoy Vegas and then have a chance to see both men's and women's teams play as well. It's a little bit bigger this year for the men's squad because of what's at stake. In all likelihood, a trip to the NCAA tournament for an 18th straight year will require a WCC tournament championship. It might have been a disappointing season for some fans. For others, it's a reminder of just how good they've had it.
You know, sometimes I think we get spoiled in Spokane because we've watched the guys and the girls win all of the time and go to how many consecutive NC2A tournaments, but they've won some close games, they've lost some close games.
You get used to being 1 or 2 and in the dance, you know. And now with the forecasting, you know, they got to win this tournament to be in. That's tough.
Well, among the GU fans here is a guy that no longer wears red and blue. That is former Gonzaga women's head basketball coach Kelly Graves, now in his 2nd season in Oregon. I ran into him this afternoon. He was here supporting some of his buddies within the coaching circle. Graves said Vegas was good to his teams while he was in Spokane, and he wasn't lying. 6 WCC tournament championships. For that, among other reasons, he has a lot of very good memories when he returns here in Vegas.
Oh, well, it's neat. Actually, it really is pretty cool being back. A lot of good memories here. You know, it's funny, my family talks about it all the time. I mean, the boys loved coming down here every year. This was like our big family vacation. So, yeah, you know, it's a little bittersweet. We're still Zag fans, big time. My boys, you know, and my wife, we never miss one of Coach Few's games. And then I try to see as many of Lisa's games as possible, but you know, it's tough because you still, you know, got your own team to worry about, and you're always watching film on your next opponent. So, but we're still Zag fans, no question.
Always good to see the head coach. He said he's particularly excited for that Gonzaga BYU game here at 8:30. That is it for me live in Las Vegas. Mark and Jane, let's send it back to you.
Welcome back to Coeur d'Alene, where the search for the shooting suspect of Tim Remington remains ongoing tonight.
At 6 o'clock, we're going to hear from the suspect's aunt.
He just was an exceptional student.
We'll hear more from her tonight.